I'm Kathy Kacer. I have written more than 25 books, most of which focus on stories of the Second World War and the Holocaust, and I am the co-author of Broken Strings.
My name is Eric Walters. As you probably guessed, I'm the other co-author of Broken Strings. I've written 115 books. They're available around the world and won a whole bunch of awards. Broken Strings was a particular pleasure for me to co-write with Kathy. Kathy is one of my favorite people and one of the authors I admire the most. This book is about a young girl named Shirley who could basically sing and dance before she could walk and talk. She auditions for and receives the lead female role in the middle school production of Fiddler on the Roof. And her grandfather, turns out his mother was alive during those same times and becomes a valuable resource for them in this emotional journey through his life as well as her life.
At this point in the story, Shirley has gone to her grandfather's house to see if she can go up into his attic and find clothing and furniture and props for the school show that she has gotten a part in. And while she's rummaging around in the attic, she finds a poster and a violin, an old poster and a violin. She recognizes that they must belong to her grandfather, and she wants to ask him about it. And so this is the point at which the story will begin to connect these items that she's found in the attic with her grandfather's history during the Holocaust. So she's come downstairs to see her grandfather after she's been up in the attic. And he says, "Did you find anything worthwhile upstairs?" And with that simple question, everything changed between my grandfather and me. I was just about to tell him about the clothing and furniture I had discovered. I was going to ease him into a conversation and then gently turn it toward a discussion about his younger days. But that plan was suddenly derailed when Zeta took one look at the poster and violin, still snugly tucked under my arm. His mouth fell open and his face went the color of chalk. "What are you doing with that? Where did you find those things?" His voice was hoarse and trembling. "In the attic. You told me I could go up there to look, remember?" Yes, I just didn't know those things were there. We're still there." His whole body started to tremble, and he suddenly seemed so frail and old. "Zeta, are you all right?" I knelt down in front of him and reached out to touch him, terrified that he was going to have a heart attack or a stroke. He shook my hand away. "Those are my private things. You shouldn't have them." His voice had gone from hoarse to harsh. I'd never heard him sound so angry with me. I was his cherished granddaughter, the one he'd do anything for, and now I was really scared, not only about Zeta's well-being, but about having dug into something that was none of my business. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do anything wrong. I just found this stuff up in the attic. You said I could go up there. I'm really sorry." My voice trailed off into a whisper. Zeta looked away. "Those things were supposed to be there. They were to be gone, given away, or thrown out. Your booby promised me she'd get rid of them. The poster was in a big trunk under some clothes. I'm sorry," I said again. "These are not yours to touch. Please just leave the things here." He wasn't sounding as angry anymore, just weak and a bit sad. "But I don't understand, Zeta. Why?" I said, "Please leave them." That was the end of the conversation, and I knew it. I carefully placed the poster and violin on the sofa and turned back to my grandfather. "Is there anything I can get you, Zeta? Some tea, maybe?" "No, I'm fine. Fine. Sorry I yelled. It's just..." "No, I get it. I shouldn't have touched your stuff. I hate it when Mom comes into my room and moves my things around, or when Adam takes stuff that isn't there." I was babbling now and trying to lighten the mood, but failing miserably. Zeta just sat there and said nothing. At least he'd stopped shaking. "Okay, well, I guess I should get going. You sure I can't get you anything?" No response. I headed for the door, but just before leaving, I turned around once more. "I'm really sorry, Zeta. I found some great clothes and hats in the top of that trunk, stuff that would be perfect for our show. And I guess I got so excited I just kept digging to the bottom. That's when I found the poster. I needed to know that everything was okay between my grandfather and me. I wouldn't be able to live with myself if he stayed angry." Finally, he raised his head and looked at me. "I understand, Shirley. And don't worry. Everything will be fine. You're welcome to take the clothes for your show," he added. "You'll come back for them. We'll have tea together another day." That was the olive branch, and it was good enough for now. I nodded, turned, and left the house.
The idea for this book started as I was driving up Airport Road through Caledon. I was thinking about a story that had a Holocaust component and a musical theater component, and instantly I thought, who would be the best person in the world to write this with? Kathy. I contacted her and gave her an original acorn of an idea from which this story evolved. That was the beginning.
And for me, well, first of all, I have to say that, this was a huge pleasure for me to be able to write this book with Eric. And I was certainly thrilled when I got the call from him asking if I was interested in delving into this idea, this germ of an idea that he had. And one of the things that I really wanted to include in the book that really was the inspiration for me is that I had always wanted to write something about the orchestras that existed in some of the concentration camps of Europe, where prisoners were forced, if you will, to play music for the newly arriving prisoners who were coming on the trains. It was kind of this illusion that everything would be fine for them there, when in fact it was not. So when Eric had this idea of a school musical that had a Holocaust component, I hoped that we would be able to include some of that history in it. And without giving too much away, let's just say it becomes an important part of the book.
It certainly was a combination of things. And as we wrote the story and we're going through it in the final draft, what we continually came up with is we were saying, well, who wrote that line? Okay, was that my chapter or your chapter? It blurred into where ideas came from in such a seamless way.
I don't know if there were books that we used. I mean, I think we both kind of dove into, as you said, the history, Holocaust history, and some of the concentration camps. We both dove into school musicals and the audition process and what all of that meant. The musical in this book is Fiddler on the Roof, and so we needed to have some familiarity with that. There is a component of the book that involves 9/11, and so we continue to do research beyond what we already know about that time in history. And the one other piece of history that I'll mention is the grandfather, in this case, loves wrestling and has this fascination with wrestlers of that time. So I had to do a bit of research on that part of it as well. Although I will say, just before Eric talked, I will say that grandfather is modeled a little bit on my own father, my late father, who, by the way, loved wrestling, was an avid wrestling fan, although I kind of blocked all of that out when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm. The character, I like to look at characters, and the character of the grandfather, actually, Kathy provided a picture of her father. And when I'd be writing this, I'd have that book up so that his picture was looking at me. It just added that wonderful element for me to visualize this person, and it made it more personal because it was Kathy's father. In terms of research, we happen to have the world's leading young adult children's writer on Holocaust as one of the two of us. I think it's Kathy. I also, I've written books on 9/11, so I know the 9/11 background. In terms of musical theater, what people probably don't know is that Kathy's children are incredibly talented performers. Her son was the premier male actor in the Carole King story, Beautiful, on Broadway. He was Spider-Man. Her daughter recently was the lead female actress in a Stratford production. She kind of knows musical theater. What's been a lovely little twist is that the audio version of this book was done by Kathy's very talented daughter.
Yeah, that was a thrill. I must say, the audio version is out now, and by Penguin Audiobooks, and the fact that my daughter is the reader just, I think, is one more connection to this book and this story, and certainly is near and dear to my heart.
Think about from your father's picture and your family history with the Holocaust to you writing the book, to your daughter doing the audio version, and someday one of your grandchildren listening to it.
Oh, Eric, now you're going to make me cry.
but this is that generational thing, and the idea that this event that happened, now 80 years ago, still resonates throughout our society. That this is something that still affects the children and the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren. That this was a piece of history that we can't forget, because we tend to repeat what we forget. This is important as it goes down generationally to generationally. And this book was what happened in the Holocaust, but it was set in 2002. It's the echo effect of this. We can't forget the echo effects of episodes in history that are that significant.
There is an educator's guide that is available. If you just Google Educator's Guide Broken Strings, it will come up. It's a really lovely document that provides a bunch of activities and exercises for the kids in the classrooms to do. One of the exercises that I really love is the one that talks about the power of music. And I think we would both say that music plays a huge part in this book. And one of the comments that Shirley's mother makes in the book is that hardly anything brings back memories and emotions like music. So this activity actually asks kids to pick a piece of music, any piece of music, and to think about what emotion it arises in them, good or bad, how they feel about that piece of music. And then bring that music into the classroom, play it for their fellow students. Don't tell the other kids what you're feeling, but have the other kids in the circle talk about what they think you might be feeling from having listened to that piece of music. And what I love about this exercise is that, again, it really encourages kids to connect with their emotions and with music. And so speaking to the importance of, mental health at this time in the world when this pandemic is raging and when we worry about our kids' mental health, anything that encourages them to connect with their feelings and to be able to articulate and identify those feelings is a really important thing. And so I think that exercise really helps kids be able to do that. Yes, I definitely am offering virtual visits. To get in touch with me, the easiest thing is to go to my website, which is www.kathykacer.com, and follow the links there to an email that you can send me, and we can talk about any one of my books, what that visit can look like, to what age of student. I speak to kids ages 8 through 18, so anybody within that age span, I'd be happy to speak to your students.
Yes, I'm doing virtual visits. I will be talking to anyone from kindergarten up to grade 12 in sessions from 30 minutes up to an hour, doing questions, slideshows, videos, the whole gamut of things. And I've already done a whole lot of virtual visits. You can contact me through my email at ericwaltersauthor@gmail.com. And it's not the same as being there in person. I'm already missing that. But you do the best you can under the circumstances, which is, I think, what every teacher and educator is doing these days. We'll do the best we can. And virtual visits are a fantastic way. They can be done with your kids all in different classrooms, so they can stay separate in their cohorts. They can stay in their seats and entertained. For those kids who are learning at home, you can control things and have them join in with your students at school. Great way to do it. Hope you'll connect with Kathy or I to arrange a virtual visit. Thank you.